Yeah. First of all, thank you for being here, and I'd like to thank the organizers for including our paper in the program, and also Dan for discussing the paper. So our paper is titled "Strategic Patenting and the Financial Disclosure Mandates." This is co-authored with Lee Chan at U Chicago and Liu Chen at CUHK. They're both Columbia graduate, and also with Sanho Yu, who was a Columbia pre-doc, and now she's a PhD student at MIT. And I'm Shunsuke, and I'm a PhD student at Columbia, and I'm graduating this year. And yeah, I think my co-authors are here, so they'll might jump in the Q&A sessions. So I'll start with motivation. In general, we care about how financial disclosure affects innovation outcomes, right? And there's lots of great papers written in this space recently. And in this literature, patents are often used as a proxy for innovation. But patents are not just innovation outcome. It also reflects strategies protecting inventions. Yeah. And given that financial disclosure changes the information environment and the competition landscape, and thus real decisions, financial disclosure can also change how firms use patents, even if we hold innovation outcomes fixed. So this is the focus of paper of looking into patenting behavior when independent of these innovation activities. So in this paper, we ask, how do financial disclosure regulations affect firms' patenting strategy? The main idea is that if firms are subject to increased transparency due to financial disclosure regulations, then now they have to disclose a lot about their operations, and it exposes the firms to competitive risks and the transparency costs. And because of that, firms need to adjust their patenting behavior to protect their inventions. Okay. And in particular, in our framework, the way we look at the patenting, financial disclosure and the patenting is that we model two key forces. One is that if firms use patents, then it gives the firms legal protection, monopoly rights, right? So they protect firms' inventions. But also patenting can be costly because if firms file for patent, then they have to disclose about the inventions through patent filings, and that'll be publicly disclosed. So in this paper, we developed a conceptual framework to think about these issues, and we empirically test the predictions of the framework. So in our model, this is the conceptual framework. We think about the framework where the two firms, firm I, which is incumbent, and the firm J, which is entrant. Firm I has innovation of value of theta, and firm I decides whether to patent or not. Yeah. On the firm J, the entrant side, there's two things. First, if entrant decides search effort, ES. Okay, the search effort is the probability that entrants learned this incumbent innovation theta. And this search is, of course, costly. So there's a cost function, C, which means that if the entrant increases the probability of discovering the theta, then that'll be more costly for the entrant. But also importantly, the search cost depends on this information environment parameter, which depends on which is denoted by this eta. So this means that the firms in this model, a lower eta corresponds to a more transparent environment. Okay. So this means that if the information environment is more transparent, which means eta is lower, then it is easier to search for this incumbent innovation theta. And additionally, there's competition effort, EC. So once entrant discovers this innovation theta, both firms enter this competition stage, and the firm J chooses this competition effort, EC. And this EC is the share of the profit theta, the value of the innovation that the competitor can capture. Yeah. And also this is costly, so more intensive competition is costlier for the entrant. So in this model, the role of patenting is as follows. From firm I's perspective, firm I has innovation of value theta. And if firm I does not patent, then at the competition stage, firm J can capture the payoff theta times the share EC. This is a competition effort. But if firm I uses patents, then it can be protected at the competition stage. In particular, there's parameter W, and this represents the patent protection. So if W is close to 1, then at the competition stage, firm I is protected and firm J can only capture a really tiny share of this innovation value theta. If W is small, then there's less value of patents because the legal protection is not that valuable. And this parameter W is exogenous and also commonly known by both incumbent and entrant. Okay. So this is the summary of the model using this timeline. So firm I first observes this data and decides whether to patent or not. And depending on the patenting decision, there's two different information regimes. So this ADA 1 is the case where firm I patents, and ADA 0 is the case where firm I does not patent. And for each cases, basically firm J enters the searching stage. And if you think about the case where firm I patents, then ADA 1 is the information environment, and firm J searches and determines this parameter ES depending on this cost ADA 1. Okay. And this, if we think about the patent disclosure through this information environment parameter, in particular, we assume that once firm I patents, then the information environment becomes more transparent. Okay? This means that ADA 1 will be lower than ADA 0. This captures the patent disclosure of these patenting decisions. But in any case, if firm I patents, then there's ADA 1 information environment, and firm J chooses the search effort. And if search is successful, then they enter competition. And with patents, the firm J captures EC times 1 minus W. This is the patent protection of the value theta. Now, without patenting, the difference is this information environment is ADA 0. And in this case, without patent, the information environment is more opaque. This captures the patent disclosure. And after success, now there's no patent, so there's no W. Okay, W is 0 because there's no patent protection without filing for patent. So to kind of iterate the role of patenting, in this model, without patenting, information environment is 0, right? This is what we call baseline information environment. And legal protection, there's no legal protection without patenting, right? But also there's no patenting cost. But in this case, if you patent, then of course there's legal protection W, right? This is the benefit of patenting. So this is legal protection is the benefit, but there are two costs. One is this informational disclosure cost. If the incumbent firm I files for patent, the information environment becomes more transparent, capturing this patent disclosure. So ADA 1 would be smaller than ADA 0. This is the informational cost of patenting. But also patent involves this fixed cost of attorney's fees and the filing fees, etc. So this is just direct cost. So W is the benefit of patenting, while these information environment and the patent costs are the kind of cost of filing for a patent. And this is a trade-off that firm I faces. And in this model, the equilibrium is intuitive. If the degree of patent protection is high enough, then firm I patents if and only if theta is high enough. Okay? And this cutoff determined in equilibrium as a function of these parameters. And importantly, this cutoff is a function of these information environment parameters, eta 0 and eta 1. And if the degree of patent protection is not high enough, then it's possible that the patents are never profitable, so firms never patent. But our focus will be in this threshold equilibrium case. So this is the equilibrium of kind of what happens in this model. And now we can think about the role of financial disclosure regulation. Okay. In particular, we think about financial disclosure regulations as something that change the baseline information environment parameter. So financial disclosure changes this eta 0 and eta 1, and we analyze how these disclosure regulations affect the equilibrium patenting decisions. Okay. So going back to the role of patenting, now we introduce the role of disclosure regulations. So one way we model disclosure regulation is that if disclosure regulation increases transparency, then that makes baseline information environment more transparent. Okay. This means that eta 0 goes down because lower eta corresponds to a higher transparency. So disclosure regulation lowers this eta 0, and this is a baseline effect of disclosure regulation. And because of this disclosure regulation, now patent protection will be more valuable because the environment becomes more transparent, which means that the search effort and the competition effort by the competitor becomes more intensive, which makes patenting more attractive. But there's additional subtle effect, which is how to think about how the information environment after patenting changes. Or in other words, how the financial disclosure regulation and the patent disclosure interact. Okay? And we can think of two cases, which are substitute and complements. So substitute case is that if there's more detailed financial disclosure, then patent disclosure becomes less informative. You can think of a situation where they provide like largely similar information. So if you can learn from financial disclosure, then you don't have to learn from patent disclosure. But also there's complement case. In this case, both information can be helpful and combined together. It provides useful information. So more detailed financial disclosure results in the more informative patent disclosure. This is abstract, but just give you a kind of quick example. This is an example of patent disclosure and the financial disclosure by a company called Cummins, which works on power generation technologies, etc. And one scenario where this patent is about some braking systems, and one scenario in which this can be substitute is if you think about the competitor where A was trying to figure out which general sectors are hot or active. And if you look at this patent, you can figure out that this company, Cummins, is actively spending resources on innovation in these braking systems. So this might look promising. And if you look at financial disclosure side, it shows that this braking systems is profitable. So this means that they provide largely similar information. Right? If you have this financial disclosure, this information patent disclosure may not be that informative. But alternative scenario using this like a same example, you can think of a situation or a competitor who's trying to figure out, say, which specific technologies worth chasing. In this case, if you look at the kind of these braking systems, the competitor might think like you can imitate and copy and this technology and wondering if it's profitable. And if you look at the financial disclosure, it says it's actually profitable. So these two information combined together increases the confidence of the competitor to invest in this kind of braking system technologies. So you can think of these as complements. Okay. And importantly, these substitute and complements are the implications of the effect of disclosure regulations. So if you think about the financial disclosure regulation that increases the degree of transparency and its effect on patenting, from a legal protection perspective, more transparency will definitely increase the benefit of patenting. right? Because there's more transparency, so competitor will search and compete more intensively. But from informational cost perspective, okay, this how patent disclosure and the financial disclosure interact the effect depends on whether they are substitutes or complements. If the two information sources are substitutes, then more transparency in financial disclosure regulation could increase the firm's tendency to patent because these information substitutes. So once firms have to disclose more information in financial disclosure side, the additional information contained in the patent disclosure would be smaller in the substitute case. So the informational cost becomes smaller. Right? So that makes patenting more attractive. But if these two information sources are complements, then because now that the firms have to disclose more on the financial disclosure side, that makes patent disclosure more informative to competitors because they provide complementary information. Okay. This makes the patenting decisions costlier, which makes which makes firms do patent less. So this means that if they're complements from an informational cost perspective, the effect is negative. The effect of financial disclosure regulation is negative on patenting. So the result is that firm I patents more when financial disclosure and the patent disclosure substitutes, but or complementarity is weak. But if the complementarity is strong, the effect could be reversed. Okay. And finally, this model provides predictions about the quality of patents. And if you think about the case where the financial disclosure and the patent disclosure are substitutes, so in this case, if financial disclosure increases transparency, then firms patent more. In this case, because we have threshold disclosure, increased patenting frequency means that the patenting threshold goes down. And if the patenting threshold goes down, then the conditional average of patented innovations, the average value of the patented innovations goes down because now firms patent more often, and in particular of lower quality patents to protect themselves from this increased financial disclosure transparency cost. So this model predicts that if we are in a situation where financial disclosure and the patent disclosure substitutes or complementarity is weak, then given financial disclosure regulation, average value of patented inventions will decrease, okay? Because we only observe patented inventions in the data. So these are the predictions of the model, and now we test these predictions, the framework, using empirical settings. And in particular, we look at the revenue disaggregation requirement of ASC 606. So this is the US version of the revenue recognition standard introduced around 2014. And there are a bunch of requirements on the accounting side and disclosure side. There are lots of requirements, but the one thing we look at is this disclosure requirement. In particular, firms have to disaggregate revenue into different categories and revenue streams, depending on the type of business they're doing. Okay. And the timelines that this final version of the draft was announced in 2014, and it went effective around 2017. So just to give you an idea, this is an example of this disaggregation. The top panel is this company ITT. Before this disaggregation mandate, in the segment disclosure, they disclose these different segments: industrial process, motion technology, etc. But after this ASC 606, now they disaggregated each like industrial process, motion technologies into different revenue streams. So you can see that there's more information disclosed in the financial disclosure side. Here's another example from 3M. The right side, this is the after ASC 606, and you can just see that there's more information disclosed about the firm's operations, in particular revenues. And one issue is that you might wonder this kind of disaggregation mandate, whether firms complied and if it's a really mandate. And we can we cannot tell like 100% exactly whether firms complied or not because we cannot depends on the underlying business and we don't know if firms should really comply. But we are confident that some of this compliance issue is not that important. SEC tried to enforce this disclosure aspect of this SEC 606. And if you look at these revenue tags, which it defines as treatment, which I'll explain in the next slide, you can see that the treatment firms which had the revenue tags after AC 606 were affected, but the control firms didn't increase that much. So this suggests that the compliance was high. So we can think of this desegregation as more of a mandatory thing rather than voluntary choice. So data, like I said, disaggregating firms, treatment firms, the firms that have at least one XBRL disaggregate revenue tag under ASC 606. And we look at the sample period, and we look at the number of patents and also quality of patents. Quality of patents is proxied by a number of 4 citations of each patent. Okay. So we look at the standard diff and diff, and this is a result of the effect on the number of patent applications. So these first 2 columns is the log 1 plus number of patents, but also patents are counting data. So we also do a number of patents using negative binomial. In both cases, treatment effect is positive. So firms that are subject to this disaggregation mandate increased patents like 10%. And this is consistent across these specifications. So this is consistent with the prediction that the framework that this patent disclosure and financial disclosure are substitutes or complementarity is weak, in which case we would observe increase in patenting after this financial disclosure mandate. So this is the event study plot to show this, which is consistent with the previous table. And this is the result about quality. So like I said, we proxy quality using 4 citations. And across all specifications, we observe the decrease in the average quality of patents for treated firms. This is also consistent with the kind of threshold structure. If the firm's patents, if inventions of value that are higher than a certain threshold, more patenting implies that threshold goes down. So the conditional on patenting, the average quality will decrease, which is what we observe here. So we have this plot as well, which shows decrease in the number of forward citations over time for treatment firms. And so these are the things that are consistent with the prediction of the main model. And we have some like cross-sectional analysis, but in the interest of time, I'll skip this. And I'll jump to conclusion. So in this paper, we provide a tractable framework to analyze how a firm's information environment interact with its patenting strategy. Okay, and this model has key features of this patenting system, which is legal protection. This is the monopoly rights, but also patent disclosure. This is the information side. We think these 2 forces of legal protection and patent disclosure are the 2 main forces in this patenting system, and our framework captures these both aspects. And in particular, we explicitly account for how financial disclosure and patent disclosure interact. So this paper contributes to this disclosure and innovation literature, which was surveyed by the paper we cited. And in particular, prior literature often examines firms' innovation activities and sometimes these patents as proxy for innovations. But we show that disclosure regulations can change the propensity to patent given innovation, and the patents can be thought of like these intellectual property protection strategies and not just the innovation outcomes. Okay. And more broadly, this paper shows how disclosure regulations can affect real decisions, in this case, patenting decisions, that contribute to this literature looking into how disclosure and the real decisions interact. Okay. All right, thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to the discussion and Q&As.